Have you thought about what happens after the NFL draft, John? I haven't allowed myself to think because we've had the NFL draft like at the end of this long road, but the draft is now like just over a week and a half away, and it turns out that's not going to be the end of this long road.
I'm starting to feel positive though. Did you see that story? The NBA might need like 3 weeks to get ready. I
Yeah.
do think once we get around May 1st, the curve's flattening. There's these businesses have so much on the line to get some stuff re-going. I think I don't know if we're not going to get anything tangible like May 10th. There's not going to be like baseball games going, but I do think the wheels will be in motion and things will be happening. Again, non-tangibly, we won't have anything to watch, but I do think a lot's going to change post-draft of the conversation. Let's start opening some businesses up, start changing. I do think you're already kind of hearing those
Mm-hmm.
conversations, big picture. So I'm more positive than I've ever been.
Well, okay, but the question remains: have you thought about what happened? Like, I would be in favor of the first three rounds of the NFL draft are spread out over the course of 3 weeks. This Thursday is round one, then round two, then round three, or it's just Jim Nantz and Tiger every Sunday reliving one of Tiger's majors.
I have watched a decent amount of golf tournaments, games, things from the past. I haven't hated them all.
Well,
I have not. Because usually if you throw up a random game normal times, I wouldn't spend much time on it. I'm talking a random old game. Now
let's
I feel like is it desperation? Maybe.
we both watched, like a lot of people watched the thing CBS did on Sunday with Tiger. They did one with Phil on Saturday, but
Yeah, they
reliving
did 04 and 19 back-to-back
the
days.
19 final round of the Masters Sunday with. I didn't realize they were doing it. I flipped it on and was just watching, and then all of a sudden Nance with his AirPods popped up, and Tiger in his I don't even know what you call that room, like his golf asylum room with like the white padded walls pop up, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. I would say golf might be my number one most rewatchable thing in quarantine in terms of a sporting event. Like baseball, I love baseball. It's hard to rewatch a classic baseball game right now for me. Even though I do it like in normal times, I'll have a classic baseball game on YouTube, like on a secondary screen while I'm doing other stuff. Basketball, I've done it. It's not. I think golf. I'd put golf or NFL or Super Bowls one and two in terms of the easiest sports to rewatch in quarantine.
Especially majors, and especially when you have
Yeah.
famous.
I mean, I haven't watched the Travelers Open.
Okay, you're talking majors and you're talking historic majors. I think if you flipped on one where Snedeker or Danny
Yeah.
Willett won the U.S. Open, but when you're talking, before the one on Sunday, I spent a lot of time on Saturday. I don't know if you noticed, guy, not much going on. Watching the '04 Phil's first major. Ernie was in the lead. Phil shoots 31 on the back nine. Is this his time? And he does his jump. It was just remarkable. Phil was skinny. Also, when you're watching 19, it doesn't feel that long ago. We all vividly remember it. '04, which again, you say out 2004, guy, their clothes, their baggy pants. You know how everyone makes fun of Michael Jordan for in the 90s used to wear baggy pants, but he'd look nice, like baggy suits.
Still kind of does.
That's how everyone looked in '04. Baggy ass collared shirts. You have like Ernie Els, who's massive, has a collared shirt that's like a quadruple X. Even Phil's got big clothes. That was
There's
weird
not a lot
to
of
watch.
dry fit material. It's a lot of just cotton.
It doesn't exist. Like when I'm watching 19, I felt like even though you knew what was going to happen, it still felt pretty.
Yeah.
I thought the event, one thing that the Masters has that I think like playoff NFL games have, because it's a one and done situation. I think game sevens in basketball and baseball, where a loser can go home. When you're watching the Masters a Sunday, the tension, how palpable it is, how important every shot is, how you have a finite. Once you get to like hole 10, 11, you're like, shit, you don't have that many holes left. Tiger, you forget, hit some shitty shots on the back nine when he wasn't even in the lead. You're like, God, Tiger didn't just dominate everyone. These guys kind of crumbled, and he just maintained. You're just like, whoa. But to me, the pressure, that's the one thing golf has. There's nothing quite like it on Sunday, and probably the Masters above all. The picture of the crowd in the background, how pristine the green grass is. The holes. You're like, oh, this is the shot where you're kind of hitting from an angle. This is that par 3 that's clearly really hard, even though it looks really easy. That if all these historic blowups have happened, it was just it's a powerful event. Even rewatching it,
Yeah.
from the pressure element, you're kind of on the edge of your seat. Like, God, you feel for these guys.
Yeah, and then you add to it the fact that you were playing in groups of 3, which you get more action, and the fact that it's all these guys, because it's so recent. It's all these guys that are still great players, right? Molinari and Koepka, Finau's right there in the mix, playing with Tiger and Molinari. The 12th hole, the par 3, where like because they were so backed up, you kind of could see what was like. Tiger kind of knew that both those guys ahead of him had hit in the water, but he didn't. That part was really interesting of getting Tiger's analysis. He knew Koepka and who went in the water with Koepka in Koepka's group. 2 of the 3 of them went in the water.
What was it? Rose or no? It was Poulter.
Poulter, right? Because 4 of the 6 guys in those 2 groups went in the water. So Tiger comes up, and he knows those 2 guys went in the water, but he doesn't know why. Like he's not positive. Did they mishit the ball or did the wind? What happened? But because it's 2 of them, he thinks they weren't mishits. And then he sees Molinari pull out an 8 and barely get over the water, then hit the thing and fall back in. He's like, I think he hit that pretty well. So then he goes where he goes, and then it's confirmed when Finau tries to do the same thing Molinari did, hit it well, and ends up in the water.
If you would have asked me what was the sequence, I would have been like, oh, yeah, Molinari, Finau both go in the water. Tiger then clubs up. I had forgotten. Tony, how do you go into the water after 3 of the last 4 guys have gone in the water? Wouldn't you fucking airmail it to the back bunker or something?
Yep.
And the crazy thing about Finau, he felt like he was just quadruple bogeying every hole. He was kind of floating around. Like, he was not out of it.
The other thing is... yeah, go ahead.
Really quick on... Nantz asked him a question. Maybe it was like the next hole when Finau didn't quite die. And Tiger was like... It was a par 5. I think it was... It might have been 15. When he's like, oh, Tony hit, driver 9-iron onto the hole. And you can see how great of a ball striker he is. And then Nantz tries to, like, just go big picture. He's like, Tiger... How about this Tony Finau? Just great. He's going to win a Masters, right? And then I think Tiger realizes, like, I'm not his President's Cup captain when we're talking about the Masters. Like, I'm his competitor. If I put out Tony's got the talent to win a couple majors. I was thinking, like, Tiger kind of went back Earl Woods. He just didn't really answer the question. Mm-hmm. I think Tiger really likes him and was clearly pretty impressed with him. But if Tony goes, Tiger thinks I can win a major. What if they're paired together in like 2 years down the stretch? You don't want to give that confidence. It was kind of old school tactics from Tiger.
Which
where Nantz thought, and I don't blame Nantz, thought he was going to get like an easy Tiger's relaxed. Oh, Finau, yeah, he's going to win majors. But Tiger's still trying to win majors, so he's not putting that out in the ether.
It's a great call because the irony of it is, right, that Tiger used to use everything to his advantage when he didn't have to. Like, he was beating you by 8 strokes, whether he said he thought you could win the Masters in the future or not. But what particularly that 12th hole illustrates, like, his advantages are sometimes really slim advantages. Like, it's Tiger's understanding of the wind on the 12th hole at the Masters and his ability to read it and see what's happening. That was the difference there. Well, the next time Tony Finau's sitting on that 12th hole, Tiger might not have that advantage over Tony. Like, that
he
little
won't
thing.
He won't now, right?
No. Well, in theory, I mean, he shouldn't have had it then. Tony just watched Molinari and then saw what Tiger Woods, who's plays that hole more than anybody, did. It was like, nah, fuck it, I can make it. So that part's fascinating. And then the other part of that was like, I think we all know this, but to really hear when Tiger says things like, he struck it well. I think he hit it like 6 feet right of where he was aiming, when he was talking about Molinari. And then even Nantz knows golf. Like, Nantz played college golf. Nantz knows golf. But when Tiger explained to him where he was trying to hit the ball, Nantz kind of followed up, and Tiger's like, no, I'm hitting it right over, what did he call it, the tongue of the bunker. That's where I'm hitting it. And sure enough, if you just, when you watch that thing live, you might have thought, Tiger went a little, I wonder if Tiger was aiming over there. Yeah, he was. That's exactly where Tiger was aiming. Over the tongue. Not over the bunker, John, to the left of the tongue, in the middle of the bunker.
Well, the guy that's gonna know moving forward, my overall take is the moment Tiger knocked his putt in, if Koepka and him had been tied after 18, I think Tiger would have been in a little trouble. Because Tiger even said it was exhausting. I was kind of just trying to hold it. Koepka was kind of heating up. He hits it in the water, and then you're like, oh, Koepka blew up. Unlike Molinari, who crumbled, Koepka just hit a bad shot. The next hole guy, he eagles. And then he starts he just locked in. And he misses the putt on 18. Now, who knows? Tiger was ultra conservative on 18. But what if they went to underrated part about how sweet it was to end it? Can you imagine the power of Tiger going into a playoff with Brooks Koepka, who by far is the most intimidating young player that he could go up against, right? Who's won all these majors leading into that tournament. Yeah, that would have been as great as it was, and it was unreal watching it. I look back and went, God, it could have been like that on steroids. Now, if Tiger loses, everyone kind of been because you go back to 18, right, a couple times before they move you to 10. We've seen that happen before. That would have been weird, right? Because everyone would have been rooting for Tiger. It just, who knows?
Yeah.
That's the great what could have been.
One thing we haven't seen yet in Tiger's return in the two in this win and the East Lake win was by the time he got to 18, it was his, basically, right? Like,
yeah,
he missed two. It was similar to his win in the Tour Championship, in the FedEx Cup, not the Tour Championship. I guess it is the Tour Championship, but it was similar in that he kind of missed a putt that would have been sweet, but he still had another putt to clean it up and still win the thing easily. We haven't seen him yet, like, pressure putt 18. If Tiger misses this, he loses. If he makes it, we go to a playoff. Or he makes it, he wins. He misses, we go to a playoff. Or he's got to make it, and Koepka's behind him in the last group, and Koepka knows if he pars, he wins, right? We haven't seen that. Maybe we will. I don't know if we will or not. But last year's Masters, if it ends up in a playoff and Koepka beats Tiger, it's great for Koepka, but it's not as good for golf.
And overall, I give CBS a lot of credit. Now, granted, getting Phil and Tiger to do this probably over the last couple weeks, they've had some time. No one coming into it was pretty cool. And to get Tiger choked up a couple different times was just, we don't usually see him like that.
You have to tell me something. So I had it on. I left the room for a minute. I come back in. Tiger's wearing the green jacket all of a sudden.
So
did they edit? Did he just grab it and put it on?
Well, I think what happened is the way they had set it up, right, is like every couple holes or whenever they feel like a big moment, they come to Tiger. And he's sitting there wearing the same outfit the whole time. I would guess he had it. They brought it in because they knew when it ended, they were going to do like a summation of it. So Tiger, they go, Tiger, after he birdies 16 and he almost hits a hole-in-one, and then Nantz goes, well, just kind of random question, like, how many hole-in-ones do you have, Tiger? And Tiger gives his incredible answer. He'd had 19 by 25 years old, and he did not have another one, he said, till a couple years ago, when he just subtly was like, yeah, just before Thanksgiving, we were in Palm Springs, me, Freddie Couples, Joe LaCava, and my son Charlie playing golf. Like, that might have been a cool pickup game, and he hit one. And you're just like, God, think how many hole-in-ones. I mean, that guy was a machine.
How long till Charlie hits one in the par 3 contest?
Well, not long. When he birdies that, there's that famous photo because the hole 17 tee box isn't that far away. Yeah. The place fucking goes apeshit, and Koepka, and they all look over there. Yeah. And then Nantz goes, we'll come back to you in a couple holes, Tiger. And then Tiger's when he comes back, he's wearing the
he had it on. God, it was so great. The idea, because all of a sudden you realize that green jacket is just in his closet.
Yeah.
Or somewhere, right? It's just in his house somewhere.
One cool moment, I rewatched a little bit of Butler Cabin.
Yeah.
And right when he puts it on, right when they come in, Tiger's kind of geeking out with Victor Hovland.
I remember that.
It kind of sounds like he asked him, like, what did you hit? Because I saw Hovland say like a 6 or a 7. I could see Tiger was kind of intrigued by this guy. Probably heard a lot about him.
Hovland doesn't realize it's going to be used against him.
Yeah, exactly. And then Tiger, when Patrick Reed finally puts on the jacket and Tiger drops, it fits.
That's so funny.
It still fits.
It was so great.
Yeah, Tiger.
Well, yeah, they update it. If you go back and look, we did a Tiger video on YouTube, which you can go subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're listening to this podcast. We did a Tiger video, and I think it's the first one, the first or the second one, the jacket is so huge. Now, he's skinnier then, too. But the jacket's just, and to your point, it's like part of the style, too. But the jacket's huge. And I was laughing, like, would they have been able to do that on Sunday if it was just, Francesco Molinari won the Masters? Like, CBS can't put that together. They have to do an old Tiger.
quick hot take. The storyline with Tiger winning it was bigger. I think it's the longest period of time. A guy 08 to 19. It's like 11
like
years.
Gary Player, right?
The watching Sunday 04 when Phil won it, Tiger didn't come storming back, right? Those guys crumbled and he just sustained. He just didn't fuck up. But those guys, I mean, Molinari had multiple doubles down the stretch. Mickelson was like 4 down, shot 31 on the back, and just came storming back to beat Ernie Els and birdied 18. So, and Nantz said, or Faldo, one of the two of them said, this might be the greatest Masters ever. Just the birdie, birdie, birdie. Everyone's birdieing down the stretch. It's Ernie, it's Phil. Now, the underrated part about 19, you're like, Jesus Christ, this leaderboard was incredible. Even like the randoms, like, oh, there's Dustin Johnson 2 back. There's Justin Thomas hits a hole in 1. He's 2 back. Like the names on that leaderboard were incredible. Molinari, who crumbles, had just beat Tiger 8 months ago.
Yep.
I thought the coolest part of Tiger with Nantz was like, you know, my kid saw me 8 months ago.
That's the best part.
He basically said, I fucked up. I blew the tournament. You're like, God, he's being pretty honest here. Like, I blew it. I was in the lead in the back 9. And then he's like, Frankie played well. He did what he had to do, but I screwed up.
How old is Charlie Woods?
8 or 9.
Yeah, because I just remember watching him then and then seeing it again, this part where they're following Tiger up the path and Charlie's like right on his heels. It's like, God, do you remember, John? Maybe in quarantine we're all back in this world when it was just every day, every single day was just a pair of basketball shorts and a T-shirt. But like that wasn't quarantine outfit. That was just school, basketball at the park, home. And Charlie is just like T-shirt and basketball shorts. You don't see a lot of T-shirt and basketball shorts at the Masters, but Charlie's just T-shirts and basketball shorts.
Well, you know what's mixed into, like chicken nuggets, waffles.
Exactly.
Like,
the whole deal. Game Boy.
If Tiger ever gives you the go-ahead to have like a Pepsi, you know, you're just like, yes.
Some fries. Oh,
you know,
fries. Just fries.
A milkshake.
Yep.
And then, boom, you're playing a little more.
Yep.
You know?
That's right. Hey, the
other thing when Tiger was like, you can tell he was raised, you didn't ask questions. You were just told what to do. And I think most humans are like this. You're the opposite a little of your parents. Because he's like, yeah, they were in Florida. My family was not here on Saturday or the week. And his daughter had lost a soccer tournament. He's like, I called her Saturday night. I was like, you guys want to come to the Masters? You know? And you could tell he was hoping that they might say no, you know? And they did come, obviously. I mean, you boom, press a button, the private jet brings them. But yeah, it's a cool moment.
Very cool. And I thought of the thing Hunter Mahan told us when we interviewed him on the podcast, which was last week, which was, you know, sometimes you have to win with your B game.
Yeah.
And that's that.
I think he won with like his B- game. I don't even think he was that great.
That's where, though, specifically Koepka comes into play. Because when Koepka's got, you can't beat Koepka with your B game if he's got his A game, right?
No.
Right now. Just like you couldn't have beaten Tiger on his prime B game with your A game, probably.
No. Well, I think I was listening to Koepka was on with Pardon My Take with those guys, and he mentioned he's like, the shittiest part about this Corona, he's like, I was really kind of I'd been off, and right at the Players, like that, my last round before they called it, I was like, I think it's starting to come together. Like, oh, people better watch out. Because again, he does, rewatching that, you're like, God, he kind of has a Tiger vibe, very serious, not trying to be friendly with everyone. Not that he's a dick.
No.
He's different, but he's hitting these shots that are just peppering the pin and right down the middle.
No doubt.
He's sweet.
He is we've said it many times. We've talked about it last year. He's the closest thing to Tiger since Tiger. So, before we get on to some more stuff, John, let's welcome to the podcast Raycon wireless earbuds. So comfortable. And in this time of quarantine, conference calls, listening to podcasts. You know, everyone talks about isolation from the rest of the world. What about isolation from your roommate or your significant other? Because, you know, we don't all live in I saw a picture. A buddy of mine sent me a photo, John, of a guy just sitting in his pickup truck in front of his house with his earphones on, just getting some space. Well, that's where Raycon earbuds, stylish, discreet, no dangling wires, stems to distract anyone during video calls. It all comes into play at buyraycon.com/ham for 15% off Raycon wireless earbuds.
Well, guy, their newest model, the Everyday E25 earbuds, are the best ones yet. I wore them on Sunday to get a little workout in. Over 6 hours of playtime, seamless Bluetooth pairing. Press one button, it's easy. More bass. You like getting a little
I
bass when
noticed
you
that
listen to
with
your
them when
tunes?
I was washing the dishes with them in.
Yeah, Raycon's wireless earbuds are so comfortable. You really don't feel them in. And like you said, unlike most wireless options, Raycon earbuds are both stylish and discreet. They fit right in. They have multiple sizes. They give you from small to big depending on your ear size. Uh, you've heard us talk about it. It's co-founded by Ray J.
Mm-hmm.
We've all heard of Ray J. So I appreciate the hustle, Ray J. I like them. Appreciate me and Guy appreciate the earbuds.
Yeah, and
they're good. They're solid.
Here's the important part, right? Half the price of other premium wireless earbuds on the market, and they sound just as good as all the brands you're familiar with. So now's the latest and greatest from Raycon. You get 15% off your order at buyraycon.com/ham. That's buyraycon.com/ham for 15% off Raycon wireless earbuds. Buyraycon.com/ham.
I like it.
We're getting more and more details of the NFL draft since the last time we did a podcast. It's going to be Goodell in his basement announcing picks. I hope he's got good Wi-Fi, John. We are just over a week away now. Week away Thursday. What part of the draft? There's been a lot of complaining. I shouldn't say a lot of complaining. There's been a lot over the last month of GMs don't want this, GMs don't want this. Now that it's become apparent that it's happening, I think even they have to. You go from the complaining mindset to the let's make the most of this mindset. So I think we're trending towards that. I've heard there's been less complaining here lately.
I feel about early last week that kind of comes to a screeching halt. Once you know there's no going back. What does it make sense bitching and moaning? The other thing, like what we just talked about, everything they're looking up, they're seeing CBS is doing a Zoom. Like this is the reality we're in.
Yeah.
This is just you're doing it.
It's everybody who said. Did you say this last week? Like nobody has it, or maybe it was Cowherd said it. Same thing. Nobody. There is no perfect. Nobody's in the perfect situation right now. Everybody's dealing with something.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, the Zoom is not that difficult to use. I talked to an NFL assistant coach, and I asked him, how's the Zooms going?
Yeah.
He's like, it actually makes everything more efficient because when you bring a guy to your facility, there's so much wasted time. He's like, you kind of got to be in and out. You hit certain bullet points. You get to specific things right away. There's not much fluff. I do think it's going to look pretty cool on television. Again, we're a little more – if this came out of nowhere, like we had just been living normal, and then you did this the week of the draft, it'd be weird. I think we're kind of getting conditioned a little bit to just see little boxes on our television screen, dudes with wireless earbuds. Hopefully it's by raycon.com/ham.
Maybe it buffers a little. Maybe it skips.
Yeah, just because the Wi-Fi, it just is what it is. I'm actually think it's going to be kind of intriguing to watch Goodell from his basement, all these GMs on like their camera on their computer. It's going to be something you won't really ever forget, because right now the only thing, there's nothing we'll ever forget. Well, there's not any events to never forget, because even free agency, it wasn't any different for us, the consumer. It just happened like it would normally happen. Now maybe we would have got some press conferences, right? Brady would have had one, DeForest Buckner would have had one, all that type shit. But really, that's the only difference. Other than that, nothing has changed for the consumer, beside the fact that we haven't had these events that we normally talk about to rift about because they just haven't existed. This is going to exist, but it's going to look, to me, dramatically cooler. I just think it's going to humanize these guys a little bit. You're like, God, John Harbaugh's got a small office, or geez, look at Belichick's home office. Just some of these things like PK. Who knows? I think it'll be fun.
Yeah, I think it'll be
in a time that's not that fun.
Because I think no one, to your point, if this happened at the beginning of quarantine, we'd probably be a little more mad about pixelated video, right? But let's say something will happen. Now, I'm not saying some disaster. I'm not saying it's going to get hacked, but is Roger Goodell's Wi-Fi going to freeze in the midst of, and with the third, we have a trade.
Wouldn't you say it's more likely to happen on Friday or Saturday when a lot of shit's going down at a much rapid speed, where the first night I guess all it takes is a Wi-Fi to go out of the guy trying to make the pick. So who
But
knows?
I would think they would have to have some. If John Middlekauff is supposed to make the pick, there's got to be a backup, right?
Well, they have conference calls. I guess every team is going to be on an open landline, with like whoever the decision makers are on it on top of the Wi-Fi. Now, what usually happens is you have a person designated that whenever you read, remember that one year Woj had all the picks, and in the NFL they have to tell everyone with ESPN or NFL Network don't release the picks early because the picks get sent to the league office by that team's war room. Hey, I'm the Cincinnati Bengals. Our pick is in. We'd like to take Joe Burrow, quarterback, LSU. That is in way before you hear it on your television. I mean, when I say way before, there might be 4 or 5 minutes, but that's a long lag period. Well, is that lag period still existing as much with this? Because like who's sending it in? Does the GM send it in? It's going to be I wonder if there's less lag time. Because I usually get the information because I know multiple guys on multiple teams whose job is to just go, John Lynch, or hey John, I would call him John Lynch if you're in the room. Hey John, the Lions have just traded the pick to the Miami Dolphins, and the Miami Dolphins have selected Tua Tagovailoa. And then then you start kind of going off from there, leading up to your pick. Or the Carolina Panthers pick is in; they have taken X player. That is in usually 3 or 4 minutes, sometimes 5, depending as you get longer. Right. Before we hear it on television.
Yeah, there's a commercial break. They wait.
So you just will there be something weird happen with that? Like Trey Wingo's like, yeah, we don't know who the pick is. I think
Goodell had a bathroom break.
Yeah, there leaves the opportunity for some fun moments like that.
I think everyone understands now. The question is there going to be a story, somebody tried to do a trade and something got screwed up, or somebody wanted to pick a guy but something got screwed up? Is that going to happen? That I hope not. I mean,
I feel like that's inevitable. Yeah, almost. And it might not even be something as serious as, because you'd say worst case scenario, Team X thinks the team above them picked a player, so they pick the next player. They go, whoa, and they try to take him immediately, and it turns out that team had picked that player. And then we're like 2 picks removed, and there was just mass confusion. That would be a disaster, right? Would they have to press pause on the draft if like Isaiah Simmons had been picked 3 times in a row? It probably wouldn't happen 3, but it is possible to happen twice. Team thinks like it gets announced that the team had picked CeeDee Lamb, and you're like, oh my God, Isaiah Simmons is still on the board. Well, it turns out they actually took Isaiah Simmons, but lost in translation somehow. I don't know. I'm rooting for that, and I would be okay.
Something will happen, and we won't be able to predict what it is. No. It won't be Laramie Tunsil's gas mask, but that's hard to top.
Would you say that's out of bounds to leak something shitty about a player during COVID-19? Is that out of bounds?
Somebody's tumbling because it turned out that he's hoarding toilet paper?
Yeah. This guy's been price gouging Purell. Yeah.
He was actually the money behind the Purell guy in Nashville.
I know.
I don't know.
That'd be pretty funny.
All right, Niners and Raiders, obviously partial to them. And once again, we get lucky. The second time they've had back-to-back picks with similar, I guess you can probably find similar needs between any 2 teams in the NFL, but I would say both fan bases, Raiders and Niner fan bases, both desperately want them, or at least it's most fun to connect them to receivers. And it does feel like that top group of receivers will be gone by the top 15 picks in the NFL draft.
Also, I'd say this, though. The reality is with a receiver, how many teams are there in the NFL don't need a wide receiver?
Exactly.
Right? I would say that position more than any. Like, you could always just add another sweet wide receiver. Like, Jerry Jeudy would play for legitimately 32 teams. Like, he would be in the mix.
Yeah. Do you feel like at this point, I mean, the Niners obviously – prime trade back candidates because they don't have a second rounder. They have the 2 ones. Mayoko's been he's been saying for a while. I think Peter King wrote something Monday too that hinting at D tackle, which would mean not taking a receiver. It might also mean not trading back, but you could trade back a couple.
But they have 2. Both these 2 teams have 2 picks. So I think they are both inclined and should be to take the sweetest player available at 12
Yeah.
and 13. You don't need to force quote unquote the wide receiver. I've been told the Raiders would love to add a second round pick. Well, the way they would do that is probably trade back 4 or 5 spots. Now, they're going to have multiple options to do that because they got 12 and 19. The 49ers don't have a second, don't have a third, and don't have a fourth. I think it would be shocking if they don't trade back one of their 2 picks. And you could argue that unlike 31, 13 could just net you more if you go from like 13 to 17 or 13 to 20. It could accumulate, boom, multiple picks. Like, what if it, like, would you do 13? I don't even, it's irrelevant who's in this spot, but like 13 to 19 for their second this year and a third next year.
Actually, that trade is relevant. Who has the?
Well, yeah, because 19.
It's the Raiders.
Okay, but a third to 3 to 21 or 3 to 22 for a second and a second next year.
Well, I think the value of that,
because that's on the table.
And the value of that one is if you trade 31 to get a second, then guess how many firsts you have? 1. If you trade 13 to get a second, guess how many firsts you have? 2. Right.
Now the difference though is you can go, like, I can go 31. I know the group of players that are there at 31. I can go from 31 back to like 36, right? Early in the second round that wants to get up to get their player, and you don't move that many spots back, and you still know the player you can acquire while also adding a third round pick. I think that's what's powerful about doing subtle moves back. The John Schneider special, which I read a good nugget. Since 2012, guy, he has made 10 first round picks. 19 and 17, he traded back twice. He's made 8 other trades beside that. He traded every year since
2012. He's made how many first round picks?
Okay, let me rephrase that. I did not do a good job. From 2012, he's traded his first round pick every single year. Every single year. Now, some have included players. Some have included just trade back downs. Last year in 2017, he traded that pick twice. I think one year he went back and then he moved back forward. The other year he went back and then back again. But from 12, literally, he's never used the pick that he had as of like today. He's traded it every stinking time.
He's got 27.
So basically, a GM just told, I think, Peter King, like, the only thing we know that's going to happen on draft day, the draft's going to happen, and John Schneider will trade his first round pick.
One of these days, he's going to move up in the first round. He's got 2 seconds.
I would say this, though.
Already.
I think 13, more than likely, because there might be Henry Ruggs there, CeeDee Lamb, probably more on the table to trade back. 31, there's just a huge unknown.
Well,
because you need 30 players to go off the board. You need a certain player to be there for a team, ideally. I don't think you want to trade 31 to go back any farther than like 40, right? You want to stay relatively pretty high because that's still premium players. Look, last year the Niners had, what was it, like pick 37 or in 38, and they got Deebo Samuel. Like, you want to stay in that little range to get a player that you value.
Yeah. You can plan for 13 right now. It's a lot harder to plan today to trade 31. Like today, you can go, all right, the 3 quarterbacks, the Okudah, Simmons, the offensive lineman, Young. Like, you can figure out today, if you're the Niners.
I think you could have legitimate, tangible conversations with a couple teams behind you about potential to trade up, and they might reach out to you. I don't even think it's possible, really, at 31. Maybe super, super light, but if you're a team, why are you even worried about trading up your second to get to 31 when you have no freaking clue who's going to? It's a waste of your time.
The other thing, if you're the Raiders, is what if you value the 4th best receiver in this class close to the 2nd best receiver in this class, right? Whatever your board is. If you've got Judy 1, Lamb 2, Ruggs 3, and whatever, Laviska Shenault or Jefferson, whoever 4. If your 4th guy you think is almost as good as the 2nd guy, then maybe you do have some incentive to move back. But I'm with you. For both those, the problem for like the Raiders' 2nd first round pick is much closer to their first pick than the Niners one is, right? Like the difference between 19 and 31 is pretty big.
Big time. I think in a typical draft, the top wide receiver at least historically thinking, the last handful of years, right? When you have like a Julio Jones going to go in the top 10, there's usually a big drop off. The year that Mike Evans went really high, and there was like Odell Beckham and Brandon Cooks, like all those guys, DeAndre Hopkins, a lot of those guys have become just really good players. And they all felt kind of jumbled at the time. Remember the Amari Cooper year where it was like Amari was the best by far. Some people like Kevin White, but then there was no one else even in the discussion. This one does feel like, even if you have them, because you're going to rank them 1 through 6, I bet there are some teams and many general managers that go, yeah, I mean, is Brandon Ayuk as good as Jerry Jeudy? No, but if I told you in 3 years with our scheme and our stuff, like the difference of Jerry Jeudy's my number 1 guy and this guy's my 6th guy on the board, I don't think the gap is that wide when I factor in upside and how talented this guy could be, or Jefferson or some of these other names. But you go, aren't we better off using that pick if we are going to stay at 12 or 13 on a corner, on a defensive tackle, on an offensive tackle if you're the Niners, and then take the wide receiver with 19 or 31 or whatever? Because when you got a draft that's quote unquote deep, 10 deep, the value gap is not as big, where the value gap at defensive line and corner is always huge. That's why C.J. Henderson, the corner, Peter King wrote that he's talked to teams that have him above of Akuda. I have not. Again, I don't know every team in the league. I have not heard that. Like I've heard that he's the clear 1, but I've also heard this guy is the clear 2. So if you go, there's a clear 2, getting a sweet corner when you know I can get a wide receiver or a linebacker or whatever a little later, it makes like there is a balance of factoring in need, BPA, and just factoring in the draft's inventory, right? Especially with the Raiders and Niners when they have multiple picks who both need a wide receiver. And I think it would be stunning. I guess one of them could trade out of the first round. So when the dust settles, they both, probably the Niners, wouldn't have 2 first-round picks. But let's say they both used, that 4 picks are used, that if each team doesn't come out with a wide receiver would be a little shocking, right? You would expect a wide receiver for each team. But I will not be shocked if the wide receiver for each team comes at 19 and 31.
Well, the odds, John, it would be fascinating for us just because we obviously follow every team, but those two really closely. When you just look at the draft historically, the odds of there being 3 first-round or even 2 first-round kind of receivers that turn into what you want a first-round receiver to be, just the odds aren't great. Like, I'll just rattle through here, okay? 2018. All right, DJ Moore, then Calvin Ridley. Those are your 2 first-rounders. All right?
Yeah.
2017. This is a good one to talk about. Corey Davis, Mike Williams, John Ross. Those were 3 top 10 picks.
Yeah.
2016. Corey Coleman, Will Fuller,
That was a miss.
Josh Dotson, Laquan Treadwell. Those were 4 first-rounders. 2015. Ton of them. Amari, Kevin White, Devontae Parker, Nelson Aguilar, Brashad Perriman, Philip Dorsett.
Well, Guy, that's the other problem with just the draft in general. We basically talk about everyone in absolutes and like it's final. Like, oh, you get Jerry Jeudy, he's going to just be sweet. You get CeeDee Lamb, he's going to be he's Hopkins. You get Isaiah Simmons, you're talking Ed Reed meets Ray Lewis. I mean, combine the two. That's how we always do it, right? It's how people always say the power of a draft pick is not the player that you end up picking, it's the hope of that pick. Oh, the Niners get rid of DeForest Buckner. They got pick 13. Well, what if they don't nail the pick? Do you know what DeForest Buckner is? A 12-year NFL starter who's a borderline Pro Bowler every year. And it's just what makes sports, especially basketball and football, the power of their draft. Football, their draft lasts longer. But I was thinking, you got multiple second-rounders. What if you whiff on them both? It's like, what if you go from 31 to add a 2 and a 3? It just might not work.
Let's just play the odds. Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, Henry Ruggs will not be Pro Bowlers on the teams that drafted them 5 years from now. Not all 3 of them, right?
No chance. No
like
chance.
2014. But John, even some of these like Sammy Watkins, Mike Evans, Odell Beckham, Brandon Cooks, Kelvin Benjamin. Odell Beckham's on another team. Sammy Watkins is on I don't even know how many teams since then. Feels like more, right?
Yeah.
The year before that, Tavon Austin, DeAndre Hopkins, Cordero Patterson. Those are your first rounders. Justin Blackman,
Yes.
Michael Floyd, Kendall Wright, AJ Jenkins. I could do first-round receivers forever.
Yeah, it's scary.
So,
well, because if you think about a lot of the good wide receivers recently, you haven't had to take them in the first round. Deebo Samuel, last year, Deebo Samuel, AJ Brown, DK Metcalf, Devontae Adams, Michael Thomas. Like you can get dynamic players just in other rounds at that
Juju.
position.
Just Cooper Kupp.
Another great example.
Tyler Boyd, it turns out.
Boom.
You know, on and on and on. I
Nailed it.
I love looking at old drafts.
They're great.
I mean, I remember when you know who went 8 spots ahead of Devontae as a receiver?
No.
I remember this now in retrospect. Paul Richardson from Colorado to the Seahawks.
That was a bold pick. But see, I'm not going to defend that pick because you would just rather have Devontae than Paul Richardson every day of the week and 50 times on Sunday. Sometimes, though, teams, one thing they've been looking for a while, and this is why they got DK, they love the speed guy because he throws a great deep ball. So you'd go, in theory, in your meeting room, especially they had Doug Baldwin at the time, you would go, well, we don't need a player like Devontae. We need a top-end speed guy. This is why when you look back several years, I bet if you're a Seattle fan, you're like, God damn, we could have had Devontae Adams, and Tyler Lockett and Chris Carson and Russell Wilson, and we could have drafted DK this year. Our team would have been sweet. But you're not thinking like that at the time because the Niners, for example, let's say all 3 wide receivers fall to them. The Raiders take C.J. Henderson. They go corner or they take a line. They do something else. And just all the 3 wide receivers fall to you. And you go, you know what the Niners need? They got Debo. Get a speed guy in Henry Ruggs. Well, what if in like 3 years, CeeDee Lamb is better than DeAndre Hopkins? You're like, oh my God. We could have had CeeDee Lamb and Deebo Samuel. But at the time, you're like, well, we don't need 2 Deebo Samuels. We just need Deebo Samuels and Deshaun Jackson. The problem is, more likely that guy's going to be, just the history would show you, John Ross, right? Because that's what the Bengals were thinking. Like, we can get Deshaun Jackson to go with A.J. Green? No, what you should have done is just taken DeAndre Hopkins or whoever the other fucking wide receiver was to go with A.J. Green. And it would have been on like Donkey Kong. But you always try to, you balance it. And I think basketball is actually a good example. They've been doing a better job, at least some teams, not actually, never mind, but a decent amount of teams. I think the smart teams that don't draft high think about this. Like, don't worry, don't get so caught up in this guy does this, this guy does that. Just get the most good players. Because if you had 3 Devontae Adams, you wouldn't be like, we just can't take the top off.
Yeah,
those guys would just be getting open every play. Yeah, they would. Devontae on the left would be kicking ass. Devontae in the slot would be getting open. Devontae on the right. Like with the Saints right now, would they rather have 3 Michael Thomases or like a Michael Thomas and a speed guy? I think you just take 3 Michael Thomases.
Exactly. Let's make it about the 49ers, whose 2 best receivers are their tight end, George Kittle and Deebo Samuel. Yeah, ideally you would have you would find your Deshaun Jackson here. But what if this team just had Anquan Bolden? You'd be like, it doesn't really fit. It's like, I bet it works though. We want.
You're saying if they had Anquan right now?
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, if this Niners team, instead of having quote unquote, remember it was like Torrey Smith and Anquan. Well, what you need is whatever Torrey Smith is supposed to be, right? But if it's Anquan or nothing, I bet that works too.
But I also think it gets overrated. Like, no one says, like the Chiefs, for example, they just won the Super Bowl. Whenever you watch the Chiefs on a Sunday morning, everyone thinks the same thing. Do they have 7 guys that run a 4.240? Because they're just hauling ass. They never, if you just put in Michael Thomas or a Debo or a Devontae with all those speed guys, it would just work. You know what instead they do? They roll out like 3 Tyreek Hills and they just run bombs.
Well,
they just kick
it's
the
a great
shit
point,
out
John.
of you.
What do you think, if you just asked people as they watched the Chiefs what they thought Kareem Hunt's 40 time was, what do you think people would think? I think everyone would think Kareem Hunt's he must have been a 4.4 guy. Like, nah, he's a 4.66.
But but he didn't play that exactly. But I would say running backs, I would say this, and maybe this is the counter. When you have a bunch of speed, your slower guys also look fast because everyone's just playing so fast. Sometimes maybe the counter would be when you have slower guys. Maybe the reason Michael Thomas does look fast because they have Ted Ginn. Like they do balance
maybe he just
it out.
looks fast because he's fucking good.
Maybe he just
Maybe
plays
just
fast.
good players
maybe
look
just a
fast because
ball.
they're good. Like they always have the ball and they're hard to tackle and they're running.
Well, this also gets back to sometimes I think we make too big a deal over the over 40 times with good players. Like 4.6. And that was it. I think multiple guys that fall into this category are Juju Smith, are Devontae Adams, are Michael Thomas. They're just, if they had run 4.42, they're just going in the first round. And then I think sometimes you overcompensate. You go, this guy's just a good football player. N'Keal Harry, because that's where I stood last year. I'm like, take N'Keal Harry. He ran a slower 40. Who cares? And you're like, ugh. But it's only 1 year. He's hurt 8 games. You can't.
I know,
I'm not
but
overreacting.
that's how it felt. It's get time.
Yeah,
All right. Anything else to?
because the knock sometimes is the guys can't get open.
Right. But either you find a way to get open even if you're slow because you're strong, or you have a good ability to separate, or you just catch contested passes like Michael Thomas and Devontae Adams do, and then you're hard to tackle. And it's like, well, he's running 12 yards downfield with his regular speed, so what difference does it make? Just got a first down.
Exactly.
And if you can catch 18 balls, 15 balls, 13 balls like those guys threaten to do. Anything else on the Raiders and Niners trading back for now?
I wouldn't mind like a midweek trade back just to give
there
us
you
something
go.
to talk about.
I'm with that.
Yeah, I'm game.
Before we get on, John, to some quarantine thoughts. Manscaped.
Love my friends at
Back with us.
Manscaped.
Use the code HAM at manscaped.com. You get 20% off. You get free shipping. You actually get a little more right now as well. Subscribers for a limited time get not one but 2 free gifts. The Shed travel bag, which is a $39 value add, and the patented high-performance anti-chafing Manscaped boxer briefs.
We actually have it all. We got the bag. We got the boxer briefs. I might be wearing the boxer briefs right now. The lawnmower 3.0, which I've been using consistently. I actually wash it off. Sometimes I use on my
Not
face.
recommended,
if
but
do a
I
little
can
cleaning.
speak for the sides right here.
Yeah, so I mean, the Manscaped 3.0, it has a great little USB charger, like you said, the travel case, the boxer briefs, comes with deodorant, for the cojones, to keep the anti-chafing. Again, the most powerful thing to me about the Manscaped 3.0 is you can just go to town from the bottom all the way up to the top, and you're not cutting anything, and you can go fast. It's
You're cutting the hair.
soft, it's smooth. You're cutting the hair, but not the body. We've all had some war wounds back in the day, and that's why Manscaped is crushing it, because their product is so dominant. Manscaped.com,
The
promo code
only
HAM.
men's brand dedicated to below-the-waist grooming and hygiene. The perfect package 3.0 essentials kit. That's what you get. You get 20% off the travel bag, the boxer briefs, free shipping, and the lawnmower 3.0, which is the key to the whole thing. 20% off, free shipping. Manscaped.com. Code HAM. Your partner, your body, your balls will thank you. Code HAM.
Yes, they will. Yes, they will.
Some quarantine thoughts, John, for this podcast. What's on your mind?
Well, one thing that hit me last night, I would imagine, and I tweeted this out, I think the drug use in like the 60s was a lot different than now. I mean, we had less information, the hippie movement, Vietnam. It wasn't just people smoking weed, right? They were doing, we look back on the times, even successful people. I mean, hell, Steve Jobs using acid, doing drugs that I don't think millennials are doing. I do think the amount of substances that millennials, just weed and alcohol, have consumed during quarantine is really, really high. Like would push that group of just consistently drinking, even if it's just glasses of wine every night, cocktails
John,
every night, edibles
the
every
Insta
night.
stories I see, they're not waiting until night.
No, they are. I think the millennials are using substances. Again, I'm mainly marijuana and alcohol. I don't think the average normal millennials like popping acid at his house on Wednesday night, also then going to a conference call the next morning. But I do think it's really high. And the Insta stories, again, small sample size, lot of alcohol getting consumed.
Especially because you can wine specifically feels like something people can drink at like noon. It's like, oh no, I'm just open a bottle, have a little wine. That it just feels different than than hard alcohol. And maybe it's probably, I would say beer is closer to wine in that way. I just have a few beers. Like you're not falling over drunk. You're just, buzzed with a few Coors Lights.
I see, but I think wine would be in its own category. If you had a conference call at like 1:00 on the West Coast and you just had a cup of wine, I don't even know if you'd be, depending on who you're on the conference call with,
a can of beer would look different.
To me, a can of beer or like a glass that's clearly something white or dark, you're like, what are you drinking? I think you get away with wine. That's why everyone on social media is cavalier might be the wrong word, but they ain't hiding it at all times.
It's the great. I don't know if wine marketed itself this way, but it is the great. The great advantage that wine has is how, all these alcohols are obviously publicly acceptable, but wine's on another level in terms of just how acceptable it is.
Well, the most people I see consuming it are millennial women on my timeline and NBA players. Do a ton of Instagram lives. They are always drinking wine, which is, I go back and forth. Like, I'm not a huge wine guy. I know some people that are, but most men in my life drink. And I think when you just look at it from a sports perspective, like the Niners got made fun of when Levi's originally opened. It'd be like, you know what they're going to have? You can get like chicken curry or Chinese food and wine. It was like, guys, this is football. Just have some pizza, have some hot dogs, and have some cold fucking beer. We don't need to outthink this. And have a couple cocktail stages. And that's when you go now, it's what it kind of feels like. It doesn't feel like a wine and cheese crowd. In baseball, you don't think like, oh, just going to go to the yard and have a glass. No, you're going to drink some beer or you're going to have a cocktail and watch the game. And I think football and baseball kind of feel like that. Just the average guy is going to drink, but drink beer or hard alcohol. These NBA guys, it just feels like they love wine. And I don't feel like their consumer is huge on the wine. Now,
Which
maybe
is crazy
the rich,
because
super rich
everybody's
guys,
huge on wine, it seems like, right?
But are they? I don't know.
Yes, I think they are. But again, you're talking to two people who I've got bottles of wine that people gave me. I don't buy wine and I don't drink wine. I don't drink it. I'll drink it if you go to dinner and someone has, here's some wine. Okay. But I have not opened a bottle of wine in quarantine. I've opened a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah,
I had beer.
Yeah, that's why I wonder if there is. And again, I'm not a little disconnect ratings. You just start the stuff that resonates with people. I wonder if, and that's something that clearly these NBA players really like. I mean, they're drinking LeBron's. I mean, every time you see him, he drink Carmelo. Wade. Maybe it's the older group, but I actually feel the younger group because they look up to him are consuming a lot too, and always in these videos.
Trying to be high, it just feels high class. It's an evolution.
Yeah, but I don't feel like.
But rich guys, rich people drink beer too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like Michael Jordan in the intro to his video back in the day, he had a cocktail next to him. It was all dark. It looked like just whiskey on the rocks. Guess what he is? The coolest athlete of our lifetime. So it's just I don't
back
feel
in
like
those
some
days,
of the stories.
The travel was harder. You played every day. You needed something a little harder. I think maybe to take the edge off.
Maybe it's life's too good. They're like on a Napa resort 24/7 in basketball.
I have a quarantine issue. So
go.
I think most people, just from talking to people, I don't know if you have this experience, but I think most people are tipping a little better when it comes to like the food situation right now. Like you go pick up some food.
Yeah.
I think people are inclined to tip a little more because they appreciate that people are working and they're putting themselves, you're in a kitchen. So whoever's working in the kitchen, there's probably 5 of them in there and you're handing food out to people.
Get a $70 meal, just hand it 20. Just thanks.
Yeah, I think that's definitely happening. Now, I've said this at the very beginning of this whole situation. One thing I think I said it on the podcast, just like I don't know where we'd be without sanitation workers. The challenge I've encountered is how do you tip a sanitation worker? Because I do think they deserve a tip. I don't know what their salaries are like, but it's easy to figure out a way. I think even it's a little tough, but like your mailman, you can just put a tip, I guess, in the mailbox. FedEx or UPS, it's a little harder because you have to be there to hand it to them, unless you have a single family housing situation.
If I put a $5 bill in my empty mailbox, I think the guy would take it.
Maybe it's an envelope, right? But again, I think it's a little more complicated. But I see the mailman. The mailman is working during sunlight, so I can see the mail person. The problem, I want to tip the sanitation workers. They're at the top of my list.
I agree.
But they come at 4:30 in the morning.
Get up early.
And I can't leave an envelope because that might be just looks like the rest of the trash.
It would get tossed.
So it's a challenge. I don't know if anyone out there if you've tipped your sanitation worker, how you've pulled that off.
I think you just have to get up early, stand out there, and hand them a 10.
Now, what do you think? Maybe I was thinking a little more than a 10
or 50. Yeah. I mean, 100.
What do you think about? I was thinking about this today about kind of closing the circle, John. Is it weird if the tip is like a Kinder's barbecue gift card? Can we just involve everybody in the ecosystem? Get a Kinder's barbecue gift card, give that to the sanitation worker?
You could argue sometimes stuff like that is, hey, here's a $100 gift card to Safeway. Go get some family some groceries, right?
Yeah,
here's
that's good. But I'm trying to like Safeway. I'm trying to go local company to local person.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're in talks. We're trying to figure something like that out. There are some logistic stuff, I think, with the delivery and I mean, everything's on the table. So yeah, that would make sense. Doing stuff like that. But again, that would entail you getting outside at 4:30 in the morning.
The challenge. That would require some personal accountability, and I just don't know.
Well, you also, I kind of a funny story. Meant to send Haberman a wire transfer. Our money comes in and we split it up and send Haberman his amount, and the amount that I accidentally sent Guy one morning was over $40,000. I had
which
tried
is
to send
normally the amount of money we send each other.
Yeah, so it wasn't supposed to be quite that much. Let's say it was supposed to be a 4-digit and it went to the 5 digits. And I thought I had taken care of it. It didn't go through or whatever. Because at the time I sent it, I had about $2,000 in my account, so it wasn't.
You were like,
close.
"Can you cancel?" I'm like, "I don't know, it's not letting me."
And I guess PayPal. We usually use Venmo, but sometimes Venmo has a max amount, and so I tried to use the PayPal, and I thought it was canceled. Well, it turns out they redo it like every 72 hours.
Your bank.
Yeah, even though I'd canceled it all, and I wake up this morning and there had been a 40,000 transaction. Well, I had nowhere near $40,000 in my account. I then had a $7,000 overdraft. There's kind of a random number, but again, it's all pending. And then I had minus $24,000 in my account, and it's at the time
plus
a
$25 overdraft fee, right?
Well, that comes in after Guy, when either the overdraft goes through, then you get the overdraft fee, or it all gets canceled, and then they'll nail you with a $35 just failed transaction fee. So I'm getting hit with a fee one way or the other. But I was thinking this morning, and maybe this happens sometimes to companies, right? Money in, money out, just happens really fast. For most personal bank accounts, it'd usually be a smaller amount, I would imagine, but hell, everyone's different. I don't know if I'll ever get back to this minus 24. I mean, it's like 24.30. But again, the numbers don't even add up. Like, you only took you could only overdraft me. You would have had to overdraft like over $20,000. So by the time you listen to this, if you listen to this on Monday afternoon, we'll know Tuesday morning if this goes through. And I'm minus 25. And then I got an email that said from Wells Fargo, your balance is under zero. You would like to correct this. Well, no shit. Like, you think I want minus 24,000? How's that even possible?
I don't know. And the fact that it doesn't get solved with the phone call that you made, right? You called and talked to someone and said this was an accident. That doesn't solve the problem is crazy to me.
Well, I thought it was a double whammy. That they block further transactions and they reverse the $35. What I was told this morning, she only put in motion reversing the $35, not blocking future transactions. I'm like, yeah, the $35 isn't quite as important to me in the future as 42 grand getting transferred. Okay. But again, like, it's quarantine. I realize I'm kind of being a dick, and it's 7 in the morning.
She might be working from home.
There's Wells Fargo, the most annoying sound in the world. I mean, the world is being on hold. Wells Fargo, their little jingle they play.
Is it one of their songs?
Yeah, it's just kind of a generic beat that you could make on like an Apple computer, probably. That they just. Well, every once in a while, like every minute, she chimes in, like, your wait is, a little longer than normal. But the sound goes consistently for like 30 to 45 seconds. and it would be enough in a prisoner situation to drive a man nuts.
That's what they should play.
You just fucking let it play, rank it up, and you'll want to take your phone about 5 minutes in and huck it in the water.
Maybe that's what they play at like a torture jail, right? Where it's like just that music, and it's like your next waterboarding is in 20 minutes. You're 19th in line.
I know. Here's what ultimately I envision happening if it does go through. That it's now like flagged, so you end up not even getting the money. So the money is just in this no man's land, and I'm minus 23 in the hole. And I read that you also get fined every day. It's just going to be a disaster.
Here's what I know is, if $40,000 comes into my PayPal, which not only is it not yours, it's certainly not mine. It's still going to be hard to hit.
Like, I don't even have.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's still going to be hard for me to go. Yeah, cancel transaction. I'm going to feel like I lost $40,000.
I know it will suck.
Just for a split second that I could take that money and cut all ties and just go off the grid and run. Here's
what I hang my hat on in our business relationship is when money comes in, it immediately goes out. Just boom. You don't have to waste any time. One thing I figured out is I tried to do this. I got up one morning mid-quarantine last week, and I probably had sent it around between 6:30 and 7:15. Like, I couldn't really sleep. I'm like, I'll just get out of bed. And I checked my bank account. I'm like, whoa. I had an amount of money that was not $40,000, but I was going to send a guy. And then I had pressed one too many buttons. And then all of a sudden you hit send. You're like, that's not 409. That's 40940. Oh, my God. And it happens.
Yeah. Maybe it's not the first thing you do when you wake up.
But again, like, this is, I bet everyone that runs a business has, like, these things happen, right? You just send the wrong amount. It's always better to me when you send, and this happens to most of us, it has happened to probably everybody, not enough money. Like, John, you only send me $900. Where's the other $500? That's always easy to fix, or at least easier to argue. It's another thing when you're like, I accidentally sent you $500,000.
Well, what about when you just ordered a product? I'm sure it's happened, right? Where you're supposed to order, give me the 100 rubber bands, and you accidentally ordered 1,000 boxes of rubber bands for the company,
I've
right?
done that before.
And all of a sudden, you've got all these boxes of rubber bands sitting at the company warehouse.
My worst move ever, one time I tried to pay off my credit card. Not pay it off. I mean, pay like $800, and I accidentally hit $8,000.
This has happened before.
That was a long time.
Was that also
ago,
before 7:30 a.m.?
It might have been like the difference between. It might not have been that much. It might have been like 4,500, and I was trying to pay 450. Yeah. But again, it was at the time you can't. How do you send money you don't have? We're about to find out if you can.
Well, I know that you can't. It's just how much do they punish you for doing it?
Yeah. When you're not, to me, if you're not even to 50% capacity,
it's crazy.
You just can't. You can't let it go through. If your overdraft account does not get you to 50% capacity, it should get immediately thrown in the trash.
The best part was I got an email that said
trying to send 50,000 and you had 35,000 and your overdraft could get you to 45 or something like that. I would somewhat understand, but the discrepancy here is pretty big.
And I got an email that said, "Do not send goods," as if like I was a Etsy seller. I had sold you a box on Etsy for $40,000, and the thing didn't come through, and now I had to wait. As if there's anything I can do about it,
Yeah, good luck trying to get a hold of the bank during quarantine. Also, I mean, just like you said, people working at home. It's just PayPal. You couldn't get a hold of anybody.
Man,
it's troubled times. Middlekauff's 25 in the hole.
Well, you've got a good attitude about it. There is something about knowing there's nothing you can do.
Well, the older you get, the more mature you get, you can like come to grips more. But then I got into an argument with the teller. It's not the teller, but whoever the chick is, Wells Fargo checking. And at the end, we had kind of argued back and forth because I thought they'd screwed up. She had claimed that I was kind of wrong. And she said, we value thank you for everything. And I said, kind of an old school John Asshole way, like, do you really thank me, or you just have to say that? And then she dropped, what'd you say? She was a little confused, and I was being a major dick. And then I realized, like, why am I taking this out on her? And I just hung up. I didn't even have a comeback.
That's where it's like...
Then I realized she's the decision maker. She easily could just throw away this claim, not even put it in, right? It could just go away.
Yeah.
She'd be like, fuck that guy.
That's what I always think at the beginning of the call when they say this call could be recorded for customer assurance. It's like, do they just sit around on a Friday afternoon and just listen to all these angry people and drink their wine?
And wouldn't you say that banks and probably insurance companies get just the craziest calls? Because the only option is revolving money. Like sometimes with the product's broke or whatever. When you're talking about someone's money and you're either not covered or you screwed up something with their cash, and you realize as you get older, the amount, it could be $100, it could be $20,000, $40,000. Your blood's always pumping about the same. Like I've had the same deals over insurance stuff over a $200 copay where you're just as hot. Like motherfuckers,
I remember mine.
Me.
It was 176, and I was pissed.
Yeah, it's principle.
That's right.
This was I went out of my way last week, and you still screwing me.
Yeah.
But again, it could have been my fault too.
Well, but the point is, it was your fault. But why is the solution originally so difficult?
Well, like I don't understand why you can't just press a button and press cancel, right? If we just want to stop this podcast or whatever, we just press stop. Can't you just press stop?
We got more content to do this week.
Yeah, we do.
Adios, Pelota.
Adios.